All right, so today we are diving into something that's been generating a ton of buzz lately. And honestly, it's a bit of a head scratcher at first glance. We're talking about Boxabl, this company making prefabricated homes, and their surprising connection to, well, Elon Musk.
Of all people, right?
Exactly. We had to take a deep dive when we saw headlines about Elon Musk, the guy dreaming of Mars and self-driving cars, choosing to live in a $50,000 house. A Boxabl house, to be precise. That's quite a contrast.
It definitely piqued my curiosity. What's the story there? Is this some kind of billionaire eccentricity, or is there something more to it?
That's what we're here to find out. We've got a whole stack of articles here all about Boxabl, their approach to housing, and of course Musk's decision to live in one of their units. We're going to unpack why Musk would make this choice, what it says about the company, and whether this whole Boxabl thing is something our listeners should even care about.
Sounds good. I'm ready to dive in.
Okay, so the article that really caught my eye, the one that kind of kicked off this whole deep dive, was this in-depth piece about Musk's Boxabl Casita. And I gotta say, it's not what you picture when you think tiny home, at least not at first.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear tiny home, I usually picture something, pretty bare bones, maybe a little cramped even.
Right. But this casita, it's sleek, modern looking. And the way they design it to be surprisingly spacious is fascinating. Imagine this floor-to-ceiling windows, all folding neatly into this box that just arrives on a truck.
Wait, you're telling me they shipped this whole house, like folded up?
Yep. And here's the kicker. They can assemble the whole thing on site in under an hour. It's wild.
Okay, now that's impressive. I mean, we've seen prefabricated homes before, but the speed and the design here, that's something else.
Exactly, and that's what makes Boxabl different from your typical prefab home company. We're talking next-level efficiency and, frankly, a potential solution to a lot of the housing problems we see today.
I can see how this ties into Musk's whole ethos too, right? The emphasis on sustainability, efficiency, innovation.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got rising housing costs everywhere, concerns about the environmental impact of traditional construction, and a growing interest in minimalist living tiny homes. Musk choosing to live in a casita, it kind of shines a spotlight on all these converging trends. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting, at least to me. So we've established that Elon Musk living in a Boxabl casita is more than just a billionaire's whim, but how does this company, with its factory-built homes, actually address the bigger picture of housing? Could this be a game changer for, everyday people?
Right, because that's the real question here, isn't it?
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in the Elon Musk of it all. But what about the rest of us?
And to be honest, there's always been a certain level of skepticism around prefabricated homes, modular homes, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you think about those, flimsy walls, cookie-cutter designs. Are they really built to last? Those are valid concerns.
Absolutely. So how does Boxabl address those concerns? Because they must have come up.
Well, that's what I found so interesting digging through these articles. They don't shy away from those concerns at all. In fact, they address them head on. Like take the casita, for example. It's not just some flimsy prefab. They use steel framing, for one.
Okay, that's a good start. Steel framing is definitely more durable than, say, traditional wood framing.
Exactly. And they don't skimp on the foundation either. We're talking concrete foundations engineered to withstand some serious weather. Like they've designed these things to handle hurricane-force winds and heavy snow.
Wow, that's impressive. They're really going the extra mile to ensure these homes are built to last.
Yeah, they've even conducted extensive testing on these units just to make sure they hold up in extreme conditions. It's not just about slapping them together and calling it a day. And that's another point. These articles really highlight the whole factory setting thing. Some people might hear factory built and think, oh, mass produced, lower quality, but it's actually the opposite.
That makes sense. I mean, when you've got a controlled environment, you can ensure a certain level of precision and quality control that's just not feasible with traditional on-site construction. It's like the difference between a hand-built car and one made on an assembly line.
Right, and that's where things get really interesting in terms of impact, because by streamlining the construction process, using durable, high-quality materials, they can produce these homes at a significantly lower cost. We're not just talking about a slightly lower cost. We're talking significant savings.
And we haven't even touched on the sustainability aspect yet. I mean, building in a factory minimizes waste, right? You're not dealing with all the material waste you'd typically see on a traditional construction site.
Absolutely. And that's a huge factor to consider these days, both from an environmental perspective and, honestly, a cost perspective. Less waste often translates to lower costs. But there's one more piece of this puzzle that really blew my mind, and it's Boxabl's production model. They're aiming to build a house every 90 minutes.
Every 90 minutes, that's incredible. That kind of efficiency, if they can pull it off, it could be a game changer.
That's exactly what I'm saying. We're talking about a potential solution for affordable housing projects, disaster relief efforts, you name it. Imagine being able to rapidly deploy hundreds of these units after a natural disaster to provide immediate shelter. That's huge.
It really puts into perspective what Boxabl is trying to do. It's not just about building boxes, it's about building possibilities.
Okay, so we've geeked out on the tech, explored the potential impact, but let's be real, you're probably thinking, can I actually live in a Boxabl?
Right. It's one thing to talk about it theoretically, but actually making it your home is a whole other thing.
Totally. And that's what I appreciate about these articles. They don't sugarcoat it. They admit, yeah, this tiny home lifestyle, it's not for everybody. You're going to have to be okay with less space. Maybe rethink how much stuff you really need.
Definitely. It takes a certain personality type to thrive in a minimalist environment. Some people might feel cramped or like they're missing out on something.
For sure. It's about trade-offs, right? Like, are you willing to trade off having a huge house for the benefits of affordability, a smaller environmental footprint, maybe even the adventure of simplifying your life? It's a personal decision.
Right. And these articles do a good job of laying out those pros and cons. Like, yeah, smaller homes are more affordable, usually mean lower utility bills. And then there's the whole sustainability angle. But they also don't shy away from the challenges.
Totally, like zoning restrictions. That's a big one they brought up. Apparently, some areas have really strict rules about tiny homes, so it's not like you can just plop a casita down anywhere.
Yeah, and then there's the social stigma some people associate with tiny homes. Some people might think it's weird or different.
Right, it's like, oh, you live in one of those tiny houses.
Exactly. It can be a hurdle for some people.
It's all about weighing those trade-offs and deciding what matters most to you. But here's the thing that I find really interesting, and it gives me hope for the future of Boxabl. They're not just stopping at tiny homes. They're already working on larger units, even multi-family dwellings. Imagine entire apartment complexes built with this same technology.
Now that's interesting. And if they can scale up their production model, keep those costs down.
It could be huge, right? We're talking about affordable, sustainable housing that can be built in a fraction of the time. So, yeah, Elon Musk living in a Boxabl might seem like a weird billionaire thing.
Which, let's be honest, it kind of is.
It totally is. But it also got us thinking about the bigger picture here. Prefabricated homes. They might not solve every housing problem, but they represent a shift, a new way of thinking about how we build homes. And that's exciting. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll all be living in Boxabls. Maybe not. But either way, it's a conversation worth having.